All right, guys, so now we're going to get a little deeper into encapsulation, which often includes the process of hiding data or hiding specific properties and methods of a class. So in many object-oriented programming languages that use classes, you can use specific keywords to indicate which properties and methods are accessible from outside the class and which ones are not. For example, in Java, you can use the private keyword to indicate that a property or a method is only going to be accessible within the class. In JavaScript, we don't have those keywords, but there is a convention that's commonly used to indicate that a property or a method is private, and that's the underscore. And we've actually already kind of looked at this when we looked at getters and setters. Now, up to this point, that's been the way to do this because there's no way to actually prevent people from accessing properties. So what the underscore does is it tells the developer that's using that class or that constructor function that you can't or you shouldn't use those properties outside of the class. Now, there is a new feature in ES 2022 that allows you to use the number symbol to create actual private fields. And this is a new feature that isn't yet supported in all browsers, but we are going to look at that in the next video. Right now, in the beginning of 2023, you're probably going to run into the underscore convention more often than the number symbol. But I think as time goes on, you're going to see that convention used more and more because it actually allows us to have private properties and methods. All right, so let's start out here by creating a class. We're going to call it wallet, and just think of like a cryptocurrency project or like a bank account application, something like that. And we're going to have a constructor, but we're not actually going to take anything in it. I'm just going to set a balance property for now, and we'll set that to 0. All right, now I'm going to have a couple methods here to change that balance. We're going to have a deposit and a withdrawal. So let's say deposit, and that's going to take in an amount to deposit. And then we just want to say this dot balance, and we want to add that deposit to it. So we're going to say plus equals whatever that amount. Then let's do a withdraw, and that's also going to take an amount to withdraw, and then we're going to take that away from the balance. So we'll say this balance minus equals whatever that amount. So now we can come down here outside of the class, and let's create a variable. We'll just call it wallet, and let's say new wallet, and we're not going to pass anything in, but we should be able to say wallet dot deposit, and let's say we want to deposit 300, and then let's go under that and we'll do a withdrawal of, let's say, 250. So wallet dot withdraw. Okay, and then we can go ahead and just console log the balance, so wallet dot balance, and we get 250. Now it works how expected, but we don't want to expose the balance property to the outside world. We want that to be private, and we want to make it so that the only way to access the balance property is through the deposit and withdraw methods. And this is part of encapsulation. Now, like I said, JavaScript doesn't have a private keyword or anything like that. So what we're going to do here is just use the underscore convention to indicate that that property is private. So let's go ahead and just add an underscore to this dot balance. So it'll now be this dot underscore balance, which means we have to add it here, and we want to add it here as well. So I can still access this, right? If I come down here, I'm still going to get 250. This underscore doesn't actually prevent me from accessing it. What it does, though, is it lets the developer know that this shouldn't happen. So you shouldn't develop your project in a way where you're actually doing this. So you might want a way for, you're probably going to want a way for people to get their balance. And you want to do it without them accessing this private property. So there's a few ways we could do this. We could create a function. So we could say get balance, and then we can just return this dot underscore balance. So we could do that, and then we could simply call wallet.get balance like that, and we get 250. Now, I would rather use a getter, and we've already looked at how to do that. So let's go ahead and change this from just a regular function to a getter by saying get balance, and then we're going to set no, we're not going to set anything. We're just going to do that, return balance, and then we can go ahead and access balance just as if it were a property, but it's really a getter. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let's add on to the withdraw just to make this a little more real. Let's say if the amount that we're withdrawing, if that is greater than the balance, then obviously we can't allow the withdrawal. So we'll say if amount is greater than this dot underscore balance, then actually I didn't want to move that in here. Then I'm going to just do a console log and say not enough funds and then return. All right. So now if I were to withdraw right here $500, I don't have enough funds to do that. All right. So we have a getter, and this is a good example of encapsulation. We have the balance property, but we're not exposing it to the outside world, right? We do have a balance getter, but we're not accessing this property directly. I mean, you still can, because again, this is just a convention, but it lets the developer know that it shouldn't be. Now let's add another property, another private property of transactions. And that's going to be an array. So basically every time we make a transaction, I want it to get added to that array. Now, first thing we'll do here is create another getter for the transactions. So let's say get transactions. And whoops, we don't want an underscore here. So get transactions, and let's return this dot underscore transactions. And you could do whatever you want. If you wanted to change this somehow and not just directly return the transactions, you can do whatever you want because it's a method. And then you still access it like you would any other property. So let's say transactions, and right now it's going to be an empty array. So what we'll do here is when we make a deposit, let's add that to the transaction. And I'm going to have a separate function to do that called process deposit. So let's come down here. Now this is going to be a private method because there's no reason for the user of this to access process deposit. It's something that's going to happen when they make a deposit, when they call this method. So we're going to prefix it with an underscore and say process deposit, and we'll go ahead and put, oops, let's spell that correctly. We're going to put an amount in here, and then what we'll do is first of all just do a console log and say, let's put backticks here and say depositing, and then whatever that amount is, and then we'll take this dot underscore transactions, and let's push on to that, because remember that's an array, so we're going to push on an object that has a type, and we'll say this is a withdraw, and let's also add the amount. So that's process deposit. Now in the deposit method, what we'll do is right before we set the balance, let's say this dot underscore process deposit, and we want to pass in here the amount. All right, and then let's do the same thing for the withdrawals. So I'm just going to copy this because it's going to be pretty similar, and let's just call it process withdraw, and we'll say withdrawing whatever the amount is, and then we're going to push on. Whoops, I put withdraw for the type. Sorry, this should be deposit. All right, and then this type will be withdraw, and then we just want to call that up here when we make a withdrawal. So right here, let's say this dot underscore process withdraw and pass in the amount. All right, so now if I save this, you'll see depositing 300, withdrawing 50, right? Because it's down here, we call deposit and withdraw, which are public methods, and they're calling private methods from within inside of the public method. And then we have access to transactions to this array right here with these two objects, because this transactions is a getter, okay? And all it does is gets the actual transactions from the private property. Now, hopefully by now you're starting to understand encapsulation and abstraction. So these are all encapsulated in the wallet class, and then we also have data hiding, right? Because balance, transactions, process withdraw, process deposit, these are hidden from the user of the wallet class or the wallet object, right? And this goes back to the example I gave you for abstraction with your car. So you need to know things like the ignition, the gas pedal, the brake pedal. You need to know that stuff in order to drive your car. That's what this stuff is: deposit, withdraw, these getters. It's like the gas pedal, the brake pedal of your car, where process withdraw and process deposit, these are like the alternator or the wheel axle. Like you don't have to know about that stuff in order to use your car. So hopefully that's clear. That's what I really want to get across here. Now, again, I've said it a bunch of times that adding the underscore doesn't prevent you from accessing these. I can still say, console log wallet dot underscore transactions, and that still works. So in the next video, I want to take this same class that we just created and convert it into using the ES22 class property syntax or private property syntax.